thinking I might have went maybe a little bit too overboard with the string in this one. Or is it maybe thread? I don't know, yarn? What's the difference? Actually, I do know the difference. So you guys ready for the difference between string, thread, and yarn? Because I know that's the reason you came to this video. 100%, no other reason. Well, it turns out string is just the general term for this stuff. Like, whenever you see something like this, I think even regardless of what it's made out of, it's technically string. But more specifically, thread is something used for sewing in sewing machines, and yarn is something used for more like crocheting or knitting. So yeah, in case your grandmother was busy and she didn't have time to tell you what the difference was, that's why I'm here. Alright, so let's talk about Vanessa Enoteca. Which I always thought her last name was like Ero, like erotica, because, yeah, let's admit it, she is a little bit erotic here. In fact, Barry, listen, I know this is kind of your little spot here, and it does say in your contract you have to be here at all times, but, there is a clause in the contract that I included that if it involves boobs, I can kind of circumvent your space here, and Vanessa's, okay, there we go. We half and half. You happy with that, Barry? Okay. Your contract's up for renew in a couple weeks. We'll maybe deal with that, but for right now, it's boobs. It's gonna have, you know, the forefront here. Okay, so talking about Vanessa, who is a witch, one of the few female members of the Black Bulls next to Charmy and Noelle and Gray. I think we're good. I think I can maneuver this way without knocking anything down. Alright, so this was a poorly thought out skit. Alright, so anyway, Vanessa, she's a witch, she's pretty cool. She's from the Witch's Forest originally. Her backstory, not really all that great. Now, to be fair though, her backstory does not involve being subjugated by the nobles or the royalty of the Clover Kingdom, as with the case with a lot of other backstories with these characters. No, her backstory involves her being subjugated and controlled by the Queen of the Witches. Totally different kind of aristocracy we're talking about here, okay? So now, yeah, the Queen Witch basically saw Vanessa as this potential for this, like, great magic in the Kingdom of Witches, so she threw her in a cage, like in a bird cage, to spend most of her childhood. And in fact, the way that she got out was a complete accident from what it seems. Yami was just seemingly on some random adventure and just blew through the door, and then the cage broke, and then Yami's there just kind of like, oh, dang, that old bag was really coming after me hard and heavy. Oh, hi there, girl in a bird cage. How you doing? And, you know, he's like, well, you want to get out? And, you know, Vanessa at that point's just like, oh, I can't leave. You know, this is all I've ever known. And Yami's like, come on, it'll be fine. So that's how that went down. And so Vanessa eventually ended up joining the Black Bulls as a very strong thread magic user. In fact, even stronger throughout the story, because she eventually basically unlocks the ability to manipulate fate itself. Sounds really OP, and it really is. There are limitations to it, but we'll get to that in a minute here. All right, so the first thing that I thought of when I saw Vanessa, because going back to the early stages of Black Clover, yeah, there's a lot of references to fairy tale, and probably hers was like the big one whenever Vanessa was introduced. Okay, you have Asta and Yami and Finral after the exam, they head back to the base, and they're there, and we're getting introduced to all the other members of the Bulls. I'm like, okay, this Magna guy's pretty cool, that's sweet. Lux looks like he's gonna be a lot of fun. There's a character named Gray, and I'm like, okay, Gray, that's kind of hitting the fairy tale reference right on the head. But then you get introduced to Vanessa, this sexy, big-busted witch that's, you know, really powerful, has really powerful magic prowess, but usually just walks around getting drunk a lot, sleeping, wearing her bra or her bikini, you know, a lot of revealing clothing. I wonder if that reminds me of anybody from the fairy tale universe. You know, probably not. I can't think of anyone. I think, you know, I don't think there's a single character in fairy tale that has boobs bigger than a B cup. I can't think of a single one, you know? Mashima just doesn't really tend to do that with his series. Now, of course, there's a clear reference to Kana Alberona from fairy tale, and I was like, all right, I see where this is going. But you know what, all right, I stayed with Black Clover, and like I've said before, you stay with it for a while, it gets on its own track, and sure enough, you know, there is a physical resemblance, sure, absolutely, it's kind of hard not to see that, but when it comes to the backstories of those characters, very different, okay? So Vanessa has really only had one arc in the story to really shine in any major way. You know, actually technically two. The arc that was a little bit, actually right before the Witch's Forest arc was the Sea Temple arc, and that's when we got to see her utilizing her thread magic in an actual battle. We got to see that she was actually really strong. She was one of the, when she was being attacked by one of the, like, the priests of the Sea Temple, she was one of the ones that took them out like that. Like, it wasn't even that hard. She didn't really have to even use an attack to, like, defeat them or anything, in any major way. Like Magna, had like burst of fire, or, Luck used his electricity. Vanessa really didn't have to do any of that. She's a thread magic user, which also kind of just lends herself to being really good at trapping magic. Even if you don't want to call it that, it's basically what it is, because she basically lays it out like a spider web. Anybody wanders in the thread is magically infused with her mana, so she can just, like, ensnare you, and you can't move at that point. You're basically just stuck. She can also manipulate you like a puppet on strings, basic stuff like that, wrap you up in thread, and you can move you around in funny poses or do whatever. Or, I guess, even control you to attack your ally, or she can drain magic from you. Like, there's a lot of different potential here with thread magic. You could see that, right? After the Witch's Forest arc and she unlocked her, like, red thread of fate ability, after that, she mostly just sticks with that ability as, like, her main, attack, because why wouldn't you? You have the ability to rewrite fate. Like I said, there's a major drawback with that, but we'll get to it. Alright, so she shows up at the end of the Sea Temple to assist Asta take on Veto, alright? And this was an epic battle, okay? Because first, you have Magna and Luck go up against Veto, and they use their combination at easy there, Espeon. I have a Sylphion plushie, and I'm thinking Sylphion would have worked great for this video, because Sylphion kind of looks like a cat with threads and ribbon coming off of it, but unfortunately couldn't find the Sylphion thread anywhere, so I decided to go with Espeon, which is a good, runner-up, but still, I'm just annoyed by that. But anyway, so Magna and Luck go up against Veto, and they use, like, their combination, like, electric fire attack, really high-octane power, and it doesn't even really do anything to dent Veto. Noelle pops up, and she uses the magic that she's learned to control over the course of the arc to attack Veto. Asta's there, except Asta, he's not doing too well. And then the final battle of this whole thing really comes up to Asta, Finral, and Vanessa, where Vanessa uses her threads to kind of wrap around Asta to kind of whip him around the room, while Finral is using his spatial teleportation magic to warp him to different areas, so Asta can get close enough to Veto to bash him with the anti-magic sword, alright? I really love that fight. Now listen, early Black Clover, like, I love the fight with the Capitol with the zombies, I mean, that was really cool too, but let me tell you, that fight scene right there, I remember reading Black Clover on a weekly basis at that point, not really getting that too into it. That was the first fight in Black Clover where I remember I'm genuinely excited from week to week. That's how I can kind of tell when I'm excited for a manga, genuinely. You can tell there's series that you read just out of obligation, just like, okay, well, there she goes. I've been reading this series, like Fairy Tail in that regard. It's like, Fairy Tail, I wasn't a big fan of it near the end, but it was like, I guess I'll stick with it and see how it ends, because I've been reading it for years and years and years, and I was even like that with Naruto near the end. I kind of lost a lot of passion for Naruto near the end. But Black Clover, man, that was the arc that really hit it for me, the Sea Temple, and then at the very end, when we had that fight, because I just love the dynamic of that. I love Vanessa coming into her own there, and she's like, okay, yeah, I'm not just gonna be the backdrop, fan service character with the big boobs that's always wearing the revealing attire. I use thread magic. I'm actually pretty badass at that, so let me show you what I can do. Finral up into this point, I mean, I figured Finral was going to have a bigger role later, and we're actually going to get to Finral's video after this, because he's, teleportation, spatial magic user. There's a lot of crap you can do with that. So I figured, Finral was going to get some action, but this was like one of the first arcs where really he gets to shine, and he gets to step out, because he was kind of in a shell up to that point, very meek, very shy. I mean, he's a ladies' man, of course, he's Finral, but when it comes to actual battles, he's always the one that just hides, and like, all I can do is make teleportation circles and, warp to various locations. That's completely useless in combat. I'm just like, come on, Finral, you can do some cool stuff. I'm gonna wait to see what you can do, okay? So that fight was pretty badass. But of course, at the end of that fight, Veto ended up cursing Asta with that ancient curse, ruining his arms, so he couldn't use them, and there's nothing that anybody in the kingdom, even the best doctor in the kingdom, cannot heal Asta's arms. So all the members of the Black Bulls, they scatter to the wind. Gauche and Gordon go to the Grand Magic Archive Library to research that. I think Magna and Luck, they go into that random dungeon to try to figure out something, and Vanessa, she pretty much, kind of similar to, like, you ever watch Hunter x Hunter, after the whole thing happens with Gon, I'm not gonna spoil that there, but Killua needs to go save him, and he's like, yeah, don't worry about trying to get a doctor or anybody to help Gon, I got this locked down, I know the perfect way to solve this. That was kind of Vanessa. She was just like, okay, yeah, you guys can go and research and go into dungeons and libraries and try to figure out how to cure Asta, but I actually know the perfect way to cure him, and I know where to find the person that can do it. So she leaves, and she goes back to the Witch's forest. She kind of just gets like sucked in, like she opens the door and a bunch of birds just grab her and drag her in. The witch's forest is kind of its own little sovereign nation inside of the Clover Kingdom. Nothing but women, and the women are all really strong magic users led by the queen, this one kind of matriarch of this whole society, okay? And the witch's forest itself is a really cool design because it's got the trees and everything and the buildings into the trees. Looks pretty neat, right? So the witch queen is able to heal Asta. She can actually cure or remove pretty much any kind of like really powerful ancient curse with her blood magic, all right? Now, Vanessa is not on good terms with the queen, considering that she left and she defected, and that's a big no-no. It's not exactly a no-no for a witch to just leave the kingdom and maybe to, you know, have a child and then come back with her child and then raise them to be a witch as well. That's not really forbidden, but the whole idea of what Vanessa did was just basically like shirk the whole legacy of the witches and just go off to be a member of the Black Bowl squad. You know, that was something that, you know, they don't really like too much, okay? So the witch queen doesn't really like that. But Vanessa, at this point, considering how much Asta means to her and the rest of her squad, she is willing to trade her freedom. She is willing to go back into the birdcage she spent most of her life just so Asta could be healed and so the curse could be removed. So, cares very much about her comrades, considering that Yami was the one that saved her kind of by accident, and she had so much fun living with everybody. You know, I think she might have even, like, resigned herself, sort of like, I don't necessarily deserve this, or maybe more of a better way to look at it was like, okay, you know, I was destined to be under the control of the Witch Queen. I was destined to be in that birdcage. The fact that I was able to get out and leave for as long as I was able to, and the fact that I was able to meet so many incredible people, that was a good break, but at the end of the day, I have to return here. So maybe she viewed it as like the thread of her fate in that instance, where it's like, okay, I see what's going on here. It's like the thread of fate is basically telling me that I need to return to my homeland in order to heal Asta, but in exchange for that, I'm not going to be able to leave ever again. I'm going to be stuck there for the rest of my life. You know, and if that's what I have to do, though, in order to save my comrade who fought so valiantly and tried to protect all of us and took down Veto, he couldn't have defeated Veto without him, then that's what I'm willing to do. So that was a great arc there just from that perspective. Of course, the Eye of the Midnight Sun and the Diamond Kingdom end up getting involved here with that whole thing. You had Fauna, and I think it's Ladros. But the first reading of that I had, the translation was Radross, and I'm thinking, Radross is rad! That's awesome! So and I know L's and R's, you know, pronounced very similarly in Japanese, sure. But for the purposes of this video, I'm calling him Radross! Alright, so Radross attacks, and yeah, he can't be swayed as easily as the other ones, like Mars and everybody. Radross is insane. I just love the expression, like, he's truly like a demonic character, where he's just like, how you guys doing? We're gonna have fun tonight. I'm gonna beat the crap out of you. I'm Radross. All right, so he attacks the forest, right? Asta gets involved. He gets his arms, you know, cured before the battle starts. She uses the blood cocoon thing the Witch Queen does in order to heal him, right? And so that battle gets started. However, it's very, very clear that the battle is not going to be won by Asta alone, which is where Vanessa unlocks this power of the red thread of fate. The red thread is basically symbolic of whenever you connect one end of the thread to somebody else, you guys are linked inexplicably, like for the rest of eternity. Like, you know, it's not a literal thread usually, but it's like the red thread of fate, okay? So the red thread of fate in this instance takes the form of a kitty cat, which is adorable. Vanessa takes to calling it rouge, which is, I believe, French for red or some other language for red. I apologize if I'm pretty sure it's French, but it might not be exact there, but I'm pretty sure it's red and it's rouge, right? So the thread of this cat, first off, the cat itself is pretty much immune to damage because it can just unravel itself. So if you try to attack it or hit it with something like a sword or even blast it with magic, the cat can just unravel itself into just string and just like and then reform itself whenever. So the cat is pretty much immune to damage. The cat is pretty adorable, so that's a power in of itself. But the ultimate ability of this thing is the cat, whenever it touches you, can sort of twist fate to be more beneficial for you at that moment. So for instance, if Asta's on the ground, prostrate, like he can't move, and a giant boulder's about to crush him, like Radross is like, I'm gonna crush you with this boulder! I'm rad! And he throws the freaking thing. So it's like, oh no, there's no way Asta could possibly get out of the way of that boulder! That's when the little kitty cat, Rouge, like lands on Asta's shoulder and is like, and just meows and then jumps away, and then the thread of fate will be restrung, so to speak, and then Asta will either, the boulder will land away from him and like, oh no, it's falling! Eee! What? Okay, we're good, and then Asta's fine, okay? Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds like an incredibly broken OP ability. And it is. However, there are maybe not necessarily too broken, because there are a few limitations with this, okay? First off, this is a very high performance spell. It takes a lot of mana to make this thing work, okay? So, she can't do it successively. Vanessa is capable of using it more than once in a row, but after like 3, maybe 4 times of using this, she's like running on empty, like period. Like a lot of her mana reserves get, depleted whenever she uses this ability, okay? And at the end of the day, if she's going up against an opponent that's really powerful, to the point where you have somebody that can just launch really crazy powerful magic at you, like one after another, and they're stronger than you physically, and they're faster than you and all this stuff, yeah, you can have your red thread to restring reality to the point where you don't get hit, but it's only gonna last you so long, right? It's usually used to dodge attacks. It's usually used to like, oh no, there's an attack coming at us that there's no way we can dodge, it's impossible! The attack is too strong, or it's coming right for us, there's no time to dodge. That's when Rouge kicks up and she's able to, rewrite it at that point and move things around the battlefield. However, it doesn't have the ability to just be like, Vanessa can do whatever she wants, whenever she wants, push the button. Because, for example, remember during the elf battle when, I forget the reincarnate name for Dorothy, the captain of the Coral Peacocks, but whenever the reincarnated version of her activated her Glamour World ability and sucked the Black Bowls into the Dream Dimension, right? Remember that? Vanessa was there, and she was able to still use Rouge's ability while they were in the Glamour World, but you'd think, like, if Vanessa had this ultimate, all-powerful, omniscient ability to just, like, I can do whatever I want with reality at any time! You think she could just be like, okay, I'm gonna rewrite reality or restring reality so that we never got sucked into this dream world, or I'll use my powers to immediately teleport us out of this dream world. See, things like that she doesn't have the ability to control over. I mean, who knows? Maybe someday, if she trains with it, maybe she will be able to do anything she wants, okay? But for right now, it's nothing like that. Or a better example, she can't just go up to, Patri or the devil and be like, I'm gonna use my magical restring reality to make the devil never exist, and just poof, or all of the elves will now leave their host bodies, poof. She doesn't have that kind of level of power. It's more of a localized kind of thing, typically used whenever you're, in support, one of your allies is attacking someone and it's like, oh no, they dodged, no they didn't, or oh no, the attack's coming straight at us, no it isn't, and she can do something like that. But even then, she's got to be really, really careful, because she can't just keep doing it over and over and over again, and after only a few uses of this ability, she is tapped out, okay? So keep that in mind. But I do like the concept of the power. It is a pretty cool thing. I just like the fact it summons this cute, adorable little kitty cat that doesn't really seem it seems harmless on the surface, but its power is incredibly broken, right? Like I said, not really broken, but, there's a lot of things you got to keep in mind whenever she's using it. And the cat itself is just drawn to the people that she cares about. So if she really wants to save Asta in a particular instance, the cat will make an immediate beeline for Asta, like, meow! And it does seem like her and the kitty cat, they're always together now. Like, just the act of summoning the cat doesn't seem to be draining a lot of her mana, but whenever she uses its ability, it does. Because usually whenever we see Vanessa, the cat is usually on her shoulder or, like, hanging out on her lap. The cat's usually there. Okay, and what else has Vanessa done in the story? Well, after the Witch's Forest, I mean, that kind of just reaffirmed her place as a member of the Black Bulls. She decided to just finally basically tell off her leader, the Queen Witch, and was just like, hey, I want to stay with my friends, and basically told her off, and then the Witch Queen finally just accepted it, like, begrudgingly, because she awakened this power, and the Witch Queen kind of had to have a moment where she's like, okay, she has a power even kind of, and that's an amazing ability, so okay, so Vanessa could go back to the Black Bulls and just live her life there and be happy with her friends and everything, and she's really just fulfilled by that. Afterwards, I mean, she shows up in arcs, but she doesn't really do anything really all that major. She was not a part of the Royal Magic Knight exam selection or anything like that, but she does show up in the fight with Lufalu, who's Lux reincarnate. She shows up there, although she's not the primary focus with that. Once again, uses Rouge's abilities, and I think that's when we start to really realize, like, the limitations of that, because the first time she uses it was in the Witch's Forest, and like, holy crap, that's a crazy ability. The next time she uses it is against the elves. I believe it's Lufalu, and so Lufalu's attacking, and just like, okay, yeah, you can use that ability so that I can never hit you, but it's got to take a ridiculous amount of mana. You're not going to be able to keep that up for long, so I just have to keep attacking you, and that was Vanessa's, like, main weakness there. After that, the only other major fight I think she was in was the situation with the Glamour World, right? But even then, actually, that's a great fight because Sally is present. I didn't really get a chance to talk about Sally too much, but Sally is a great character. She's just like super peppy and happy, kind of like Julius in the sense that she gets really, really kind of disturbingly fetishy excitement over magic. So she's witnessing Vanessa using this cat to rewrite reality, and Sally's just like, oh my god, that kitty's adorable and it's so cool. Can I figure out what goes on here? So Sally's kind of the one that figures out the weakness of the reincarnated Dorothy's power, the dream magic, where you can, like, not just her, but, you know, you can summon glasses, or you could summon anything if you just think about it enough. So I'm going to think of an exit, or I'm going to summon the real Dorothy to attack you, you know, that kind of stuff. So Sally's the one that really came through there, but Vanessa was an excellent support in that battle, as well as, like, before that, before they got sent into the Glamour World, it was the Black Bull that was piloted by Henry, like, charging at the elves' base, and then so Luck used his magic attunement to figure out where the attacks were coming from and launch attacks back at them, and then Vanessa used her attack to, like, absolute, you know, evasion. That was pretty cool, too. But like I said, yeah, most of the time she uses the cat. For right now, anyway, it seems to be like, okay, whenever there's, like, a huge attack coming at us that's, like, way too strong for us to endure, or it's gonna hurt a lot if we do endure it, then I'll use my power. That's when you really have to. It's not the kind of thing you should open up the fight with, unless you're going up against somebody that's so ridiculously powerful that you just have no hope of winning. Then maybe you have to open with it. But normally you'd figure, like, if I'm just gonna go into a regular fight here, I'm just gonna use my regular thread magic to try to, like, ensnare you or turn you into a puppet, or, you know, do the wire thing and just, you know, do stuff like that. I'm not gonna open up with my reality altering thing that really drains my mana. So that would be the smart thing to do there. But I love Vanessa. I love her design. I like the way that she treats her fellow squad mates, and I really hope that she has a new part of this arc here, because we're in the Heart Kingdom right now and everything, and there's a lot more potential for her in the future, and to improve on her Red Thread of Fate ability. I think you can definitely expand that to be more than just, you know, like, oh, it's a dodging mechanic, or there's some, like, other stuff to do with it. Maybe there is a way that she might be able to actually bend reality more to her, like, whims and desires, not just, like, getting her allies out of danger, but, like, hey, no, I'm actually gonna use this. Maybe there's, like, a one-time thing where if I use this ability, I immediately get drained and I can't fight for a while, but when I use this ability, I am able to, like, you know, use other kinds of magic. Like, I can use any type of magic I want when I activate this ability, but it's only for a certain time period, and I get really drained after I'm done with it, you know. So maybe she could do something like that. There's definitely potential there, right? Alright, well, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Next time we'll be talking about Finral Rulicase, who sounds like he was the owner and operator of a bookcase company or something. But Finral's really cool, and I'm looking forward to talking about him, alright? So, moving on ahead. Let's do this.